Hey again, Luke here, founder of SetHero, and today I'm going to show you how to customize your call sheets. So this will be a fun in-depth dive into really taking that call sheet from zero to hero. So with that, let's dive in here. All right. Okay, so a couple prerequisites here. First is I've already created my call sheet, which I can see here on my schedule tab. I've got 2 call sheets created. Um, the other thing that I've already done is I've imported some crew. So if I go to the All People tab, I can see that I've got a number of contacts in here. My crew and my cast are all loaded in here. And I've also imported my scene list. Now, if you haven't done this already, it's okay. You can still get started with customizing your call sheet and add the data as you go. But I've just gone ahead and done it at the start to save us some time. All right, so I'm going to go under Shoot Schedules and go under my call sheet. And we're just going to dive in here. I can see that right now my call sheet is pretty blank, so I'm going to start filling in my details. Let's say I've got an 8 a.m. call, and I'm going to say my shooting call is going to be 9:30, that we're going to try to get the first shot in. I'm going to leave estimated wrap blank. Maybe I don't want to put that out to my whole crew right now. I'm going to also leave breakfast blank. If I do put a time here, you'll see that it will show up here in the time list. But if I don't want to include a meal, all I need to do is clear out that breakfast start time and it will be removed from my list. I am going to serve a first meal here, though, for lunch. So I'm going to go ahead and list that up here. First meal. There we go. And I'll list a second meal, too, at 8 p.m. Do it that way. Now, I also want to list a meal duration. So this is going to be listed as a duration element. So 1H would be 1 hour, or I could do like 30M to be 30 minutes. See that show up right there. Lastly, I can choose to add a meal head count. So this is just going to be how many people to plan on for catering. I can leave that blank, but I can also specify it. And this is going to add that count actually in the catering section in my crew list. So if I have a catering department set up, like I can see here on my crew list, I've got a catering department, then it's going to list those meal times right there in the catering department. Okay, great. Now I'll add my locations. Since I've already got my locations added, this is pretty quick. I'm just going to actually select a bunch of kind of default locations from my location database. But if I don't have a location in my database, I can just click here on Add Location, and I'll just type in a local brewery company here in Seattle, and perfect, I'll plug that in. And there is my location. So I've got those filled out. I can also add custom locations. At the time of this recording, you can't remove any of these default locations. You could, of course, leave them blank if they don't apply, but you can't remove them. That's something we're working on adding in the future. And once you've got the locations specified here to your liking, you can go over to the weather tab, and here is where we're going to specify the weather forecast. Now, what's really awesome about SetHero is we allow you to autofill the weather data. So you just click that button and it's going to load in the most accurate forecast available right there. Now, this data is also fully editable. So if there's anything you don't like in this forecast, you can manually override that. One thing to note here is that the weather forecast is only updated automatically when you click this button. So if you're preparing your call sheets like a week before shooting, before you publish the call sheet, like say the day before, it's a good idea to refresh this weather data, because obviously the closer you get to the date, the more accurate the weather forecast is going to be. So just don't forget to keep that weather data updated before you publish. Here I can set a set medic. This is just someone designated on my crew to handle medical emergencies. That will list their name and their phone number up here. If you don't want a set medic, you can just clear that out. And I can also control the total number of shooting days here. So this is going to edit this value right up here, day 1 of 30. Of course, I can manually override this to be whatever I want. And then I can choose to list a script or a schedule version, and that's going to put those values over here in this little preview area to the left. And of course, if I don't want to include those, just leave them blank. And there we go. All right, so that's most of the settings and the header information. The other thing I'm looking at is that I kind of want to get my logo up here in the header area. So I'm going to actually just click there, and that's going to take me over to the area that edits that. That's true of most of these settings within SetHero. So if I click on my call time, it'll take me right to that field where I can edit that setting. So to edit my header, I'll just click right over there. And here I can see my header layout options. I can include my production title or not, toggle it off, company name or not. I'm going to keep my production title, and then I think I'll upload a logo for my company. Okay, I've got my logo file selected here, so I'll just click that and hit open, and I'm going to crop this to the desired width. Got to kind of zoom out there to fit it all. And hit OK. And then my logo is plopped right in there. I can control the size of the logo by dragging this slider up and down. Make it really big, real small. I can also control whether it floats to the left of the other text or whether it floats to the right of the other text. And I think I'm going to go with this option of new line. Make that a little bigger. Yeah, that's looking good to me. All right. So we've got our header done. And next, let's go over to the schedule. So I'm just going to click right on the schedule. That's going to take me over here to this scenes page. And this is where we build our schedule. So the main way that you can build out a schedule is by choosing scenes. And this will look up scenes from your scene database and allow you to just real quickly plug in the scenes that you're going to be shooting that day. Okay, so I'll just plug in those existing scenes and hit add scenes, and boom, those are listed out there. You can see them right here. It's got all of the data right nicely displayed. Perfect. I can choose whether or not to include shooting times for these scenes. So if I uncheck that, it will remove the shooting times from my schedule. I'll keep them enabled. And then I can also choose whether or not to list durations. I can also edit either by time or by duration. Sometimes I find that editing by duration is actually easier. So if I want to, change this to an hour and a half, that's going to cause the times on the next scenes to shift accordingly. I can also add a note here to any scene by just clicking on that little comment icon. And that's going to add that right here. All right, now let's say one of my scenes should have a cast member tagged, but it's not showing up because I didn't set that up initially. So what I can do here is I can edit the scene by hovering over the scene name and then clicking that pencil icon. That's going to open this modal for editing the scene. And here I can just type in the cast member or members that I want to tag in the scene and hit OK. And that's going to update those in my list so I can see now that both cast members are showing up there. One question we do get asked is whether you can edit these columns or hide columns that you don't need. And at the time of this recording, that actually is not a feature that we have, but it is something that we're working on. So by the time you're watching this, it may be available. So make sure to look in the settings. But as of right now, it is not an option. Generally, I just recommend if there's a field that isn't relevant, just leave it blank and we'll move from there. Okay, so another thing to note here is that not every production has scenes. In fact, there's a lot of scenes and a lot of productions that are block shooting. And so for that, you can click Add Banner. A banner is an element that is not a scene, but allows you to customize this to say whatever you want to say. So I'll add this banner, and I'll just call it Warehouse Shoot. and I'll just move it up here. And then we can look at that. All right. So there I've got a block element. I can also specify a location for that. We'll just do the Buffalo soundstage. Cool. So that's how you would go about adding a non-scene based element. Okay, great. Now let's go ahead and add our cast. So I can click over here onto this star icon, and that's going to show our cast. Now, because I've tagged 2 cast members in the scenes already, it's going to recommend that I add them to the call sheet. So I'll click that. If you don't already have cast members, you can select this drop down and hit Add Cast. And from here, you'll add your cast members. To add a new cast member to the call sheet, I can also choose from my list of existing cast members. So there I'll add Phyllis Lawson to the call sheet. And again, we're seeing that the cast are showing up here in this list. So we are given a lot of times to be able to choose from for our cast members. You're going to be able to specify an arrival time, a blocking rehearsal time, etc., etc. So these are pretty generic. You can also choose whether or not to display emails or phone numbers on those individuals, whether to include that on the call sheet or not. So I'll keep that turned off for most of them. All right, I'm just going to quick fill out this information. Okay, there I've finished adding in all this information for my cast members, so we'll see that showing up right here. And again, any fields that aren't applicable, I would encourage you to just leave those blank.